Hello, and welcome to the SharePoint Framework and JavaScript Special Interest Group bi-weekly meeting. It is August 16th, 2018, halfway through the month of August already. We got a great call lined up for you today. And advance. See, I'm not a certified master in PowerPoint. I don't get these things. So SharePoint Patterns and Practices, why do we have the special interest group meetings? And the reason behind that is we're part of the larger SharePoint Patterns and Practices program, but the issue we had is we just had too much content to really kind of cover that in a single monthly call. So we broke out and we have bi-weekly calls. You are listening currently to the one for SharePoint Framework and client-side development. We have another call that covers Seesaw Managed Code Development and PowerShell in addition to the monthly calls. But these allow us to be a little more focused and provide a little more deep dive into certain topic areas that we just couldn't cover on the larger calls. Generally, this call is going to cover SharePoint Framework, latest updates, how things are going with that, and associated client-side development patterns, as well as developments with the PnP libraries. Those are the reusable PnP JS libraries, as well as the reusable components, and the Office 365 CLI. Two links down there at the bottom, SPFx-Community will take you to the SharePoint area of the Microsoft Tech community. That's a great place to ask general questions that aren't necessarily related to any of the specific libraries. That's a great place for your how do I design it questions, how would you architect it questions, stuff like that. SPDev-Docs, the second link there, will take you to all of the SharePoint developer documentation. So that is going to be, if you're new to SharePoint Framework and looking to get started, that's going to have all the tutorials and walkthroughs you need to get started there. But as well, if you're working on managed code development with the solution packages, or if you're doing add-in development, the documentation for those things will be there as well. So do check that out for all your documentation needs. So what are we going to cover today? As always, Vesa says hi. I forgot to take that off the slide. Engineering update on SharePoint Framework. We'll start off with that. Then we'll have update on PnP JS client libraries, as well as a short demo on a little sort of play test experimental thing I tweeted out last Friday, and then some updates on Office 365 CLI, SPFx reusable controls, and then two great demos, one from Ralph discussing some good VS Code extensions that really help out with the SPFx and SPDev work in VS Code, and then as well from Oleg has a great demo on some tooling around modernizing classic SharePoint list forms and really helping out with that sort of thing. And do remember, please do mute when you join the calls. It does help with the quality of the recording. Let's see here. That one. All right. And hopefully at the end we'll have a little bit of time for Q&A. So, before we get to the meat of the call, just want to highlight, as always, opportunities to participate. The best way, in my opinion, to participate is please do get in touch if you have something you'd like to demo. Reach out to myself or Vesa, and we'll get you a spot on an upcoming call. It might not necessarily be the next call, right? We might have stuff already scheduled, but we will absolutely get you on a call. So if you have something cool you've been working on and you want to show it off to the community, please just get in touch. We'd love to have you on a call. I know I say this every time, but I always learn something new or see something I wouldn't have thought of in those demos. So I think they're a really valuable part of what we do on the call. So what kind of stuff are we looking for you to demo? Anything around SharePoint Framework, anything around using the PnP JS libraries, or the Office 365 CLI, or the reusable controls. Excuse me, or anything really having to do with client-side development in SharePoint. So all those kind of demos are welcome. Please just reach out. We will get you a slot. As always, you can contribute on GitHub. Contributions on GitHub can come in a couple of different shapes. So you can report issues if you're using any of the libraries or SharePoint Framework itself. Please do, if you find problems or have ideas on how to make things better, please report those. We can't fix stuff and make stuff better if we don't know about it. As well on GitHub, you can always we always accept pull requests. So if you have ideas on how to make the library better, definitely welcome those contributions. Would just throw out there, if you have an idea that's sort of a big change, before you spend a lot of time, reach out. Let's discuss it, so you don't spend a lot of time on something maybe we wouldn't be able to merge for some reason, right? So do just reach out if you have a big change. But if you have ideas, absolutely welcome those, and love all the contributions everybody puts in every month out there from the community. And then finally, you can always provide feedback on all of the various things we do. So these calls, the libraries, the documentation, all those sorts of things, samples or lack of samples, stuff like that. We do appreciate that feedback. We do listen to all that feedback. We aren't always able to respond to it immediately or correct whatever might be wrong immediately, but we do take it to heart, we do listen, and we do very much appreciate the feedback from everybody out there. So we get great feedback from the community and love that, and please keep that coming as well. I'm just off my game today with changing slides. So Vesa, if you want to go ahead and take over.
Cool, I'll do that, but you'll need to be my lovely assistant moving around the slides. A few updates on a SharePoint framework from my engineering side. Or let's say classic slides first. So can we, Patrick, move to the next slide? Because I can move the slides. Yes, thank you. So reminder on the dev docs, we talked about this one already, and I promise to keep this in every single presentation what I do for years and years forward. So AKMS SP dev docs or dev docs.microsoft.com/SharePoint and then dev. This is the location for everything related on SharePoint development. We will be releasing actually the makers documentation here relatively soon, apart from checks as an example, and the 1.6 SharePoint framework documentation is coming pretty soon. SharePoint framework and SharePoint 2019 development documentation is coming pretty soon as well. So this is absolutely the right location to find anything what's relevant for you related on SharePoint framework or SharePoint add-ins or SharePoint development in general. Now, the next step is our issue list. And this is actually something pretty late minute. So Patrick, can you go to the front? Excellent. So AKMS SP Dev issues, and this is around reporting API issues or development issues directly to engineering. So I just actually had a meeting an hour ago with our support, and we are going to increase the support resources on this one, which is good. So we will have also additional people joining on tagging and labeling stuff, so which will help us to keep up to date on any known issues what the community is reporting. So this is an option for those customers who don't have a Premier support and they cannot actually report their issues or development issues directly to the SharePoint Online development or the support. So we are triaging these issues twice a week inside of engineering, and then depending on the criticalness of your reported issue, we might jump on it. We might delay that for a while, do other things what we need to do. But things are heading to the right direction. We're getting more resources on this side in the future. Now, next slide. Thank you. So just a reminder, or just a updated slides on SharePoint framework assumption or usage earlier this week. So you can actually see the spikes on the top right corner on the latest from Monday and Tuesday. Today is Thursday. We can actually see that we did again an all-time record on a daily usage on SharePoint framework, and the usage is growing extremely fast. So SharePoint framework is by far the most fastest growing third-party customization model in Office 365, and it's already outgrown every other customization model in Office 365. So if you're wondering, is it worthwhile to actually learn SharePoint framework development, the answer is actually it is. So people are using this, people are deploying this. The right side is actually the tenants, and the left side is the users. I cannot provide you the exact numbers, but they are big. So they are really big on the usage side. Now, moving on the slides. There we go. Quick update on the roadmap. We did have a monthly community call earlier this week, but just updating some items from here. So SharePoint Framework 1.6 will go out on end of August. We originally, to be honest, we tried to put it out in end of July, but now it is end of August. We are locking down the server-side and client-side code by this week, and then we'll do some polishing and documentation work and quality assurance finalization, and then we'll push it out by end of this month. And that will include then the native graph access for SharePoint Framework GA, so you can actually start using that in production. Dialog Framework, production usage. Tenant-wide deployment is there as well, and that is something which we demonstrated in the monthly community call. So I'm going to paste in the monthly community call recording URL in the ION window if you haven't had a chance to see that. That demo is the last 10 minutes of that call, but it actually is relatively efficient because you using the tenant-wide deployment of SharePoint Framework extensions, you can easily enable extensions to be available across the whole tenant, and that is really, really great. And there's going to be a preview on Socket.io. Socket.io, let me actually explain this in a slightly more detail. So technically, our APIs, list APIs and library APIs already support subscribing to events, but we will have a wrappers for SharePoint Framework, which will make it easier for your web parts to react on events on a list and library. So somebody's adding an item or removing an item, you're able to refresh your web parts easily. There's going to be a live demos on that one obviously later. And then we're looking into having native SharePoint 2019 support in 1.6, so you can choose the environment to be a SharePoint 2019. The star behind of that is that particular item is not yet finished. We're hoping to get it in 1.6. Potentially, it might be delayed until 1.7. SharePoint 2019 is in preview, so it's not a super critical thing, but it would be nice to have it already in 1.6. Now, can we, let's move forward, Patrick, on the following slides. Do I actually have, reminder on this one. So SharePoint Starter Kit, just a reminder on this one. And this is our, let's say, reference solution on how to build modern and cool portals using the modern experiences. And this is actually the second bullet point on the slide is something new. So this is super widely already adopted. So the most used web part is actually the tiles web part from this package, and it has been used already in more than 550 tenants. So it's nice to see that at least developers are using this and demonstrating and testing capabilities. It is fully open sourced. Code is available. You can see how it's actually being built. It is using reusable controls and other cool stuff. And it has a pretty complex provisioning logic as well, which you can use as a reference for your customizations as well. By Ignite, we will be actually releasing a pretty cool self-service automation setup, and where you can actually then sign in as a tenant administrator, and you're able to then select from a different content packs. And one of the content packs is actually the SharePoint Starter Kit portal. So you're able to say, hey, to my whatever test tenant, I want to provision that kind of a site collection structure, and click just provision, and our engine is going to take care of the provisioning. And that's going to then try and make your life easier for pre-sales and demo, whatever usage. And all of the content packs will be open source, so you're able to access all of the information as easily as possible. And also the automation solution which we will use and build for this one will be open source, so you're able to see how everything is happening behind the scenes. But that's it for that one. Patrick, next slide. Thank you. We move to your section, so you can actually take it over. Patrick, we can't hear you. At least I can't hear you. No, we cannot hear you. Well, that went well. There's the first Skype issue of today, so welcome. We went 15 minutes in this call till we actually jumped into the first Skype issue. So your microphone apparently isn't actually catching Patrick. Not sure actually what happened there. So the Skype worked for me, but it didn't work for Patrick. He's reconnecting clearly because now he's gone and now he's back.
That's much. Can you
much
hear me?
Better. Now we can hear you. Yes.
No idea.
All good. Let's just continue.
No idea. So let me know. Well, I'll just start talking, and you guys will hopefully see the screen shortly. So next major
screen is there. Okay.
Oh, great.
Okay.
So next release is going to be September 7th is the current plan. That might be a major update to 2.0.0. I'm playing around with some of the internals of the library. I will keep folks posted. I very much expect that change to be invisible to all of you using the library, but just trying to respect the whole semver stuff, that might be a major update because we will be changing some names and things like that. But again, I do expect that to be pretty invisible change, pretty invisible update to everybody. But so you might see the version number jump, but I'm not sure. I will let folks know. Just a reminder, the libraries are published on CDN.js. If you are having issues with the CDN, please submit an issue with us with as much detail as possible so we can definitely check that out. We've had a couple people report they had some issues loading the libraries from the CDN, and we haven't really been able to reproduce that, or I haven't. So the more detail there, the better, because if there are problems, we definitely want to get those resolved. A quick note, we've gotten a few comments recently on bundle sizes, and I wanted to share some thoughts there. Kind of the traditional way to handle that with Webpack would be to make those external files, put them out on a CDN, and then also rely on the local caching in folks' machines. So an individual file, for example, PnP JS might be large, but really it should be about a one-time download or maybe a once-a-month download if you're updating each month. And then it should just sit there. So the real impact that bundle sizes or large files have is that first view, and especially on mobile, but as well a little bit on resources. So if you have to load all this stuff up, you are really kind of sort of asking for a lot more memory or just general system resources than you might actually need. So I mentioned doing some restructuring. So some of that restructuring is around kind of trying to look at different approaches for this issue. So taking a look at that, but one of the big sort of, not problems, but just things about SharePoint that there isn't a great way to get around is web references everything and everything references web in some way or another, right? So it's hard to split those components up. One of the things we've looked at is we could have sort of two SharePoint packages, right? But then that's more to manage, more for you all to install. And inevitably, if we had one that just had the core stuff like lists and webs, and then another that had other stuff, there'd be overlap, and there'd be constant struggle about what should be in which package. So I don't really want to go down that path either. But that brings me to a little thing I was playing with last Friday, and I'll stop real quick because I was mentioned, I see somebody said a good documentation improvement. Please submit an issue for that. I'm not going to remember that from this list, but please do drop an issue. We'll have a look at that. We do appreciate all the ideas on how to make the documentation better. But so real quick, I want to show you guys. I played around with this idea of actually, let me show this first. So if we have, this is a SharePoint framework Hello World web part. So I've run the Yoma generator, and I've imported the PnP JS stuff, and I'm making 3 really just dead simple calls. So I'm getting a list, I'm getting another list, and I'm getting another list, and I'm using a select here. And so nothing crazy, but the idea here is, well, under the hood, these are just fetch calls, just get calls, right? So in theory, we're not really using any of the SharePoint PnP JS stuff in these simple cases, right? We're not doing updates and handling that. We're not doing batching and handling that. So in theory, the thing I started playing with last Friday is we really could abstract all this away, right? And just turn this into just simple get calls. And so and this is totally experimental code, so please do not use this in production or as an example of how to write amazing code. But this was just to play with the idea of, could we successfully abstract away at the sort of production compile phase the PnP JS stuff into fetch requests. And so this is actually out there. It's in my GitHub, so it's not in the PnP JS one. It's in my fork, and I'll share a link as part of this call. But the general idea, and again, lots of ways to do this. Don't take this as the be-all, end-all perfect way to do it. But we're just using regular expressions to kind of look and see, are we importing something from PnP-SP, and then are we finding things that are just get calls, so that start with SP and end with .get, meaning they're a simple call. They're just a very simple call there. And so what we do then is we figure all this out, and we're actually doing something very naughty and using eval, because what we're doing is we're taking the string text of this command. So we're taking this part of the command, and we're running eval on it, which is actually going to give us our object, and then that object in PnP JS we know is going to have the toURL and query method. So we're going to drop that right into a fetch request. And then to help this out, and so that the stuff downstream gets the same things, we are also outputting the same options that get request would have. And this is, again, fast and dirty way to do this. We're just attaching them to window. Not great, but it works for just doing this little test. And then we come in here and we're actually returning this promise, but this is how our internal parsing stuff works. If you unroll it and simplify it, this is how that would look. So we're producing the exact same output to the consumer, but let's see what kind of real impact that has. So if we go to our Hello World project, what I want to look at, and we're going to comment this out real quick, and I'm going to run, build and bundle. And you can see here what I've done is we're going to be modifying the Webpack configuration inside our SharePoint framework project. So we'll take a look at that in just a second, but I want to show you what we are actually going to end up with in terms of file size. So we're getting this bundled up, and we will hopefully, that is not the right place, GitHub. Sorry, 1 second. Where's the load test? So we can actually look, and we got 590K, and a lot of that is coming from PnP JS. So this is sort of our effort to kind of recognize that. And here's one of the complications. So it's smart enough to see there's all these exports are unused, and it actually lists those out. But the problem is right now, because a lot of these are referenced by web, for example, they get pulled in. So we're going to come back to our gulp file. I want to uncomment this real quick, and we'll save this, and we're going to run the exact same build and bundle, but this time we're using our loader here. And right now, again, this is a hacky experimental kind of thing. I'm hard coding the base URL here, right? We could have different ways of doing this. But at the end, what we're going to see is, so this will have run through. And give that just 1 second to finish up. Finishing up. Finishing up. But you can see we're down to 29K. So we've taken all of the PnP JS stuff out, which is good in this case because it's very simple. And if we can actually look in our bundle here, we've abstracted these out to direct fetch calls, and then we're piping that to our parse, and then piping that to the exact same stuff we had before. So it's I think an interesting approach, an approach that could have some merit. And what I want to kind of throw out there is invite folks, if somebody is interested in helping out with this and helping kind of expand this to be a real thing, reach out to me. Not right now in the call, but reach out to me after the call. I'd be interested in working with you on this. It's not something I am going to have a ton of time in the near future to really invest in, but I think there could be some potential here. And just to show you, it does work after you replace those calls. So I think it's an interesting idea, this kind of post-processing. approach. Again, this is super simple, but I do think, could have some promise there, sort of get down into the Webpack stuff and really, shrink things down as much as possible. So moving forward, pnp.github.io/pnpjs. Link there is to all the documentation. PnP JS on Twitter, and you can also follow me, Mediocre Bowler, on Twitter. I don't tweet too much, so you won't get a lot of spam and stuff from me, necessarily. So updates for the Office 365 CLI. New version 1.5.0 is out with support for managing content types, fields, navigation nodes, client-side web parts, as well as listing columns and updating site properties. In progress, support for SPFx versions for upgrade. More SPFx versions, so the way the CLI can now upgrade your SPFx projects. Cross-platform PnP starter kit setup script is in the works, and then more commands. Always, of course, welcome feedback on this as well. So please do check this out, give it a try, and then if you'd like to report feedback, you can always use the Gitter channel. The hashtag Office 365 CLI on Twitter, or the issues list in the Office 365 CLI repository is a great place to provide your feedback as well. So the SPFx reusable components. Lots of stuff happening here. 1.7.0 has been released for the React controls. So these are the ones you would use more in the body of your web parts. And this would be the people picker has some added functionality. 3 different issues were closed there, as well as shrinking down the bundle size. So we're all about bundle size recently, but statically referencing some of the Office UI Fabric components and things like that. A couple of fixes as well. The field name render on click now is fixed per that issue 103 there. And then for the property controls, these would be the controls you would use in the SharePoint Framework web part property pane. The property field collection data had some significant updates there based on those issues. Again, coming straight from the feedback from all of you out there in the community, so very much appreciate that. And then as well, a couple of fixes. So the property field multi-select and the property field order both had a couple of issues fixed. You can see number 85 and 81 if you want to go check those out. For more information, do please check out the sharepoint.github.io/spdevfx property controls or spdevfx property, you can read the second link. SPDevFX controls React will get you details on the React controls, and that first link would get you the property pane control details. So do check that stuff out. Really will save you a ton of time creating your React components. They are based, as mentioned above, on the Office UI Fabric, so you're going to get the same consistent look and feel across your applications, across your web parts, your application customizers, but without necessarily having to invent all these controls yourself or write them all yourself. So really great work there, and appreciate for all of these things the great feedback that drives it from out there in the community. So now it is time to get started with the demos. So Ralph, if you are ready to go.
Hold on, I'm making one more sacrifice to the Skype gods here. And here goes. Here goes nothing. Let us share, and people will be able to see what you got. Hey, why not? Stand by, and hopefully you see my screen.
Yay!
I think everyone's in. Everyone can hear me. Looks like I'm in good shape. My sacrifices have been apparently accepted. So folks, really quick, what this is just a little bit 10-minute diversion into these favorite extensions that I tend to see and I like to use myself for not just SP development, but really for a lot of development using VS Code. If you guys are like here a long time, those guys were really immersed, especially our folks in engineering, right? They're using this tool a lot. I came from the world where it was old style Visual Studio, so we were so used to everything being provided for us, all those great stuff. Every time we added something, it was pretty much direct, or Microsoft forced the download on us. Whatever it was out there. So sometimes the littlest things that you take for granted is you won't find necessarily over here. So a lot of this, some things I had to learn when I got into it, because I saw VS Code when it came out, and I'm like, okay, that's very cute. But then when the SPFx, when the framework came out with it, I was like, yes, now we have a real reason to use it. And I started enjoying it, and pretty much now I prefer it, believe it or not, over regular Visual Studio. That being what that is, what makes it happen in a lot of the cases are the extensions. And I'm just going to start off with just a few mini little extensions that we have over here. What are extensions? Basically not the same as extensions in SharePoint Framework. Extensions are those little add-ins that they put in essentially to, here we go. The extensions are those little things that you put in to make it do whatever it is you want to do. You can create them yourself, and we'll talk about that maybe right at the end of my little session over here. Let me put on my little timer, and so I'll keep my time within, there we go. And here we go. And a little timer just keeps things within time. We should be okay. All right, so let's take a look. So with the first one I'm going to talk about, this little one over here. Let's see about the ones that are enabled. I got some ones enabled and disabled. Let's go look to my disabled ones over here. The auto close and the auto rename over here. This is a simple one. So let me enable this guy. Over here, by the way, you go to extensions to be able to enable it, or you can just find them by just typing them up in the marketplace. Just like I can type in PnP, and it'll show me all the PnP, if there are any PnP extensions. I think it's SPFx would be the extensions to look for. That's just an example of how to find them real quick. All right, so I enabled a tag. I reload it. Okay, sure enough, it's reloaded in no time flat. So what is this one over here? This one is the auto close tag. Something we take for granted. Normally, if I type in H1 and close it out, great, it closes. Believe it or not, without that extension, you have to manually set it up. With Visual Studio, it seemed like it was automatic. Well, here's what's really cool about this. I'm inside of a React little return render situation, and it still works. Very nice. Okay, so that's a very simple one. Let's do the rename tag, and I believe that one is enabled already. So let's go ahead and just rename it to 2. There we go. Changes it to a 2. And sometimes these are very trite, but this can make a big difference when you're trying to work and you have very, very large pieces of code that you're working on and you're getting through it. All right, what's another one over here? The bracket colorizer. I believe that one is still on. In fact, you can see it on right now. Bracket colorizer, you don't normally see this, but notice as I go down through the levels, and you'll see how, for example, that's blue, that's gray. If I added, for example, an if statement in here, it would do exactly the same thing. This is one of my biggest pet peeves just about anywhere, when I'm trying to find where the heck is the end of that if statement, where the heck is that end of that tag. Very simple stuff. Take for granted. If you're not doing it, obviously you're more mighty than I am. All right, let's take a look at what's another one over here. Let's look at some code snippets over here. So the concept of the code snippets, and this one is enabled over here. The concept of the code snippets, and let's get over here to some files so we can see this in action. Let me go ahead and make a file. Let's going to call it where is my planet.tsx. Okay, so I just made a quick TSX file. So here's the concept of the code snippet. The concept of the code snippet is you'll type in like letters like this, for example, like TS. And hey, by the way, there's one of these for SharePoint Framework, but I'll cover that a little bit later. So here's just quickly I just want to make a full React piece, which brings in all the bits that I need right off the bat. Don't have to type it. Very, very fast. They have these, of course, in Visual Studio, and you can have these very quickly to use over here, but that's pretty much what this does. Very, very simple. Other little things that are out here. Let's go back to our pieces of code over here. What do I have enabled? What I don't have enabled? Good old ESLint is still enabled. Let me just show you what ESLint. Well, any linting. If you guys understand the concept of linting, it's basically to set your standards and all these pieces. There is, of course, an ESLint and there's a TSLint for TypeScript in general. So let's go over here and look at our disabled list. I believe my TSLint is probably turned off at this point. Come on up here. Where are you? Did I put it over here? Did I put it in? I think I have it right down at the bottom. There it is. There's TSLint. Let me enable it. All right. So the concept, of course, is linting, but for TypeScript. All right, ES is just the regular ECMAScript stuff over here. The TS length, of course, is probably something that, not probably, it is the thing that you will be using for more likely than the other side over here. All right, let's see. What's another one to look at? We're going as quickly as we can through these. So here's one that you probably don't see too often. Let me go into our disabled ones. Let's see if I have it up here. Here we go. Let me show you first what these files look like over here. So you see over here what you got over here, the concept of material icon. We're sort of like, we're getting into that material icon kind of stuff, material design kind of thing. So it's like, well, why not have a way of looking at these things much better? So let's go look at that particular one. Let me enable it, sir. Here we go. Reload. Look at the file real quick. All right, so take a look. See what just happened over here? See these nice little colors over here? Let me Control plus so you can see them a little bit better. Got a little much more easy to define places for things. So we have like, there we go, CSS, a TSX, a TypeScript module. Just a visual way of working with things that are just a little bit cleaner. All right, let's see what's going on over here. Let's make sure I don't miss anything. Oh, yes, of course. We have the TS and ES link rule for NPM packaging. In fact, there is for IntelliSense as well. IntelliSense is not, believe it or not, out of the box for every single thing. You actually have to bring them in. So we have, for example, just for your path, you can enable your path. Let me enable that. And for NPM itself, to enable these pieces. It gives you an example. Here's what I like about these extensions. They give you like a little, literally live example for a lot of these cases, how they work, where you type something in and it pretty much understands what's happening. Again, these are, if you don't have these running on your system, my suggestion is go get them, enable them, have fun with them. All right, what's another one over here? I think we have a little prettier. Let's find prettier. Pretty. Let's see, enabled. Do I have it still enabled maybe? No, I don't see it enabled at the moment, so let's go find it. Basically, as I'm finding it over here. So there's different prettiers that I have. I believe I have one that's already installed, or did I take it out? I might have taken it out. So it's a code formatter. This is the concept of prettier. Basically, a code formatter where you can go like Command-Shift-P and you format your document and you format your selection. Here's the concept. If you're like in projects like ours where standards are important and you get code reviews where they tell you, hey, you're off, format your code. It's not looking right. Nice to have these tools ready to go. They seem to be like out of the box for a lot of things, but again, another piece to have in there. Another little piece that I have over here, the good old TypeScript hero. Let me show you that one. Let me take prettier out of the list. Let's go look down over here. And TypeScript hero. So the concept of, if you like to buy me beer, I like to let this guy, his payment is, if you'd like to buy me a beer, yes. Okay, just remember that next time we're out there. All right, basically sorting and organizing imports, your coding, your outline view. No need to really show this. Here's the concept over here. Sometimes things are not loading the way they are, just literally in the position where you place those things. Maybe not so much for the framework, because a lot of the framework stuff that we get, a lot of that stuff is already done and prepared for you, ready to go. But when you're trying to do something new, trying to extend, that comes into play a lot more. Let's see. I believe I have a minute, and that's about it. Actually, that is the extensions for now. Let me just show you some of the other ones that you have over here that we can probably cover at another time or more specifically. Some of these take a little bit longer to explain, so we're not going to necessarily cover them. But these are the SPFx ones, for example. All right. So in the SPFx ones, some of the ones that I like a lot, I like, for example, the good old Elio and our friend Waldeck have made pretty much the ones that I'm always going to go get. Well, Waldeck, they're now called Rencore. I think they were Waldeck before, but they're Rencore for sure. And Elio, my other buddy over here, are all our friends, basically. He's our friend for everything. Sometimes he'll do things like include some of these other plugins already. Like, for example, NPFx, see there's Path and NPM. And NPM ready to go when you enable the SharePoint Framework Essentials. All right? So it also enables its dependencies. It tells you right off the bat. So like all of a sudden you'll see all these other things are being reloaded. And all of a sudden, a whole bunch of things are brought in with you. So very, very cool. The Rencore ones, I think the most significant one that I've seen come out is the one for deploying. And let's go back to SPFx again, real quick. Come on up. And it's this one, the deploy package. Like I said, this one would take a while, and then perhaps maybe Waldek himself can demo this one. Let's wait for the documentation to show up. But the concept is rather than do things, for example, from the command line, you have like there, deploy all to SharePoint sites, things like that. These are the reasons for these. Now, guess what? You can, and let's see, it says I'm sharing my screen. Yes, I am sharing my screen. You can make these yourself, and sharing is caring is what we're all about, right? So you can extend Visual Studio Code for yourself. There's instructions right here, code.visualstudio.com/docs/extension/overview and how to do it and how to publish your own. So if you come up with something, you have an idea, I'm sure it will be most welcome to the community, and we are glad to see more of these. Let's just say I can't have enough of what these are. And that is my little demo for today. Promoting the extensions and promoting the fact that we're using them.
Awesome, great stuff, Ralph. Thank you very much.
Very quick stuff, and yeah, this is the equivalent of the that link that you get where the cat predictably jumps into the pane, but you auto-forward it. But it's still fun, and it still reminds you that Patrick Rogers is still tweeting. That sort of stuff.
Just super valuable for all of us. So I think now. No, great stuff. Thanks, Ralph. It's always neat to see those extensions because I myself don't use a ton of them, mostly because I don't know about them. So this is a great way for folks to get in there, learn about them, and get them installed, and hopefully smooth everybody's development experience a little bit. Moving on a little to Oleg, if you're ready to go.
All right. First of all, can you hear me all?
Yes.
Hi, everybody. All right, cool. I'll try sharing my desktop and see how it goes from here. Okay, tell me when you can see it.
Got loading on my side, and got it.
Okay, cool. I'll start with a small PowerPoint presentation that shouldn't take more than several minutes, maybe less. And here we go. So I'm just a senior SharePoint developer. I enjoyed the benefits of the community for so long, and haven't been doing anything to get back. And part of my learning with Node.js and SharePoint framework and all this new jazz, well, relatively new anyways, was to try to do something useful. And what started as a learning project, eventually I now have some kind of reusable open source package, which I hope after this presentation some of you might find it useful. So let's get started. The main challenge which we are still facing in some sense is, firstly, all these community calls are great because here we are discussing and presenting bleeding edge, latest and greatest, cool kids playing in a cool new sandbox, and that's great. I love it. However, some of us could be grounded. Literally, and looking through the window in our homes to all of this stuff which is happening, with SPFx and Office 365, and for one thing, for one reason or another, we can still be tied back to the old good SharePoint Server 2013, for example, or just even in the Office 365, we are utilizing the classic SharePoint site collections for one reason or another, and we have these gorgeous looking, list form experiences out of the box. And not everywhere you can start developing SPFx and utilize that and bringing new exciting capabilities which comes with that deployment. If you remember, back in the days, we used to have content editor web parts, and some of us still do. And this demo will feature that as well. So I'll show you how we can go from here through the code generated by Node project to something, SharePoint, of course. to something like that. It can be deployed on any site, be it on-premise or Office 365, and your code will be able to transform any out-of-the-box list you might have, which uses standard selection of SharePoint fields. I tried to cover all of them in my transformations. So whatever you might have, it should be able to swallow it. And moreover, you as developers in that package will be empowered to shuffle those controls around and build them a more custom form experiences. For example, here in the screenshot, I added tabs to the same fields. So they're still one by one, but I just, push them back a bit. Okay, so that's that. But you can say, well, will it be easy for us to use and reuse and understand that package? I really hope so, but let's see it. And before I begin, there is some words to be said about building on the shoulders of the giants. So there is a Microsoft MVP, Andrew Koltakov, who created a basically EOMan generator called SharePoint Pull and Push, or Push and Pull, it's debatable. And what that does is provisions basically a kind of Node.js project, and it has some built-in gulp tasks, which package the TypeScript we're using into the selection of CSS, JS, and HTML files. And those HTML files reference the styles and the JavaScript files, and the HTML files are intended to be included as sources in content editor web parts. And then all your code would be rendered there. And what his EOMan generator provides is just a convenient way to build the end product and push it to a certain place in a site, in a SharePoint site. And his package called SPFx, which is part of that published generator, will have capability to connect to either SharePoint on-premises using MTFS or ADFS or on SAML in SharePoint Online, or even just ask for credentials every time using the Electron package. Anyways, and I've been inspired also by Denis Molotov, which has tried to invest to do similar transformations with Angular. And my transformations here would be in React. So a few key components will be a SPReact form fields package, which does all the heavy liftings. There I defined all the rendering. If you remember how in server-side object model, the Microsoft structured their object hierarchy, you had the base rendering controls, and you had the different rendering controls inherited from them. I used exactly the same principle, and I'll show you later that I have the base React component, and then I derived components from it, and all of them, they are aware of a context of a list item, and they are able to submit and get data on save and on load. So everything will be handled for you guys. You don't need to all you will need to do is to instantiate a kind of generic form field component, and in your JSX part of a class, and you'll be golden. Anyways, let's go to the demo. First of all, I'll show you how the generator works and how we can invoke it. So we need to install the generator by doing the npm install generator-SPReact form fields. When that's done, we can run it. And to update, okay. It will ask you to ensure that you have installed the generator I am basing my generator upon, so this ng-call stuff. In this case, I have it. I can just proceed. And what happens now is the generator SPFx will be called as part of this. And that will ask you a series of questions. What do you want your application name to be? Description, author. This one is important, where you want your files to be pushed once they are bundled in the solution. So we can change that, for example, even to site assets library, like that. And one more thing, he asks if we want to include a certain React packages and typings. So in here we just click yes, and it will do its thing. It will scaffold it. I will not wait for the scaffolding to end. I have it on the other solution. First, I wanted to show you a bit about the internals of the SP React form fields package, which does all the heavy lifting. So as I said, it has the base field renderer control, and for example, the easiest one would be the text renderer, which will just inherit from it, and it will have methods that will override the new edit form, a new edit and display renderings. It will have a method to save the data. It will have some validations applied. Validations are just internal for now, but we can expand that to include some custom code validations if the community is interested. But anyways, the two main components which you will use externally from this package will be form field and form field label. And also one big one is list form, which will be some kind of a holding, like a panel component inside of which we will instantiate our form field and form field label. And that's done purely because if they are inside the list form, they will be able to obtain a React context of whatever was loaded, whatever list and item data was loaded and as part of the parameters for the list form. Right. So that's that. Let me go to a scaffolded solution. And first, I wanted to show you the gulp tasks available. All of these ones are a part of ngJuice package, and the main are built, which can accept the --prod flag, and push is the second one, which will just push all of your build assets into that folder, which we have specified as part of the scaffolding. There is a app.json file which holds all that information, and one of the properties of the JSON is SP folder, and that is what I have specified to be the location where the build files assets would be pushed. Also, I mentioned the HTML files. They are produced by something the ng called templates, handlebars templates. We can create as many of them as we like here. There are some rules like variables which can be referenced and will be pulled from the main app JSON configuration file into here, and they will be basically renamed to .html and will be uploaded as part of the end assets. And I will be referencing several of those in my demo on site. And two tasks that I created is replace list form and restore list form. Whenever you write, when you scaffold your solution and try to build and push the assets, it will ask you for the actual URL and for credentials for the method of authentication. It can also be run separately in the npm config, and it will just prompt a small task which will ask us those questions to reconfigure everything basically. And you can just bear with me for a few seconds. It's not the fastest machine in the world. Ta-da! Come on, mate. Obviously, I have not done enough sacrificing to the gods of speed of the machine, so just making it very slow.
These things do happen, and we can always do some good jokes while we're waiting that to happen.
Yeah, for sure. But okay, anyways, I have that hopefully configured, so I don't need to do that. But just that you can run this, and it will ask you a series of questions to. So you, after answering them, you will be able to successfully connect to whatever you want and upload your assets. And unfortunately, I still need to run one more task, which is to replace list form to show how it works. And because currently on this list I have it disabled, and if I click on the new item form, it should just load the out-of-the-box list form, which we love. Okay, so unfortunately we need to execute one gulp task. Place list form. And wait for it to finish. Hopefully within the 3 minutes.
So what is that doing now in practice? Replace list form, but what's happening in the behind of the scenes?
Behind the scenes, right. It will read the config information which we provided with the authentication credentials, method, and URL. Oh, it's starting. Okay, and it will connect to that web, and then it will prompt user to select a list. So it will produce a scrollable list of lists from that web, and then the interaction starts. We will able to click on one of them, and then the second question will be okay. So here we go. I will select the work request. The second question will be which form do you want to replace. So I can select either one of those three or select all. That will do replace in all of those three files, new form, edit form, display. And what it does, it hides the initial form web part and injects the content editor web parts and links it to one of the HTML files from here. So it's finished, and let me just go here. Now, I'm not sure about the caching, and it might work, it might not work, but in Chrome, it should work if I open the F12 and disable the caching here. Right. Woohoo! So this is the form. This is what you are getting without any development, by just installing the scaffolding solution, building the assets as they are there, uploading it, and running the gulp task to replace a form for list item. You can also have that. You can also develop some custom JSX and make that form, as I said, more custom, depending on your needs. But let me just show you how this works. So if you can click Save here, validation, right? Let me just type something here, blah blah blah, end date, and just click Save. And voila, it's in the display form. We can go back to editing, and we can close and go back. It will take us to the list, all items list, and we should see that item created. So here we go. And also I have another item here. I can just go from here into the edit item. It should take me to the edit. So it's a different page, but the web part will be there, and it will be context aware that it's in the edit mode, hopefully. And voila. So, okay, attachments, just let me show. You can drag and drop it. It will be a file. You can just save it after that. Hopefully, attachment will also be uploaded. Here it is. Click on it, display, voila. All right. And one last thing. Just a second. Right. I'll show you just a part of a file which I have prepared for you, where you can actually inject your own rendering logic. And there is a root TSX file provisioned there, and it calls the render custom fields logic method, which is here and it's empty. It returns null. It means that there will be no children there, and then the list form component actually knows if there is no children, we can render the form in a standard way, just field by field, and that's it. But if you want, you can override it here, and you can see that I don't have the tabs here, but this is just another package which I installed previously, the React tabs, and just by doing this, you will be getting, you will be getting that experience here. And that's pretty much it. You don't have to worry about saving, because saving is down inside that package. Validation also is done there. And yeah, I think I am done. Okay.
Cool. Thank you. Thank you. Patrick? Just double checking the situation as well.
What about now?
Yes, we can hear you.
All right. Thank you. Those are two great demos. First from Ralph again on the VS Code extensions. Some very good information there. And then a very cool demo from Oleg about replacing the forms in classic sites. So really, really great stuff. And would remind folks, please do stay on mute. So no time today for the Q&A. We've actually gone a couple minutes late, seemingly as always. Appreciate everyone sticking with us. Our next meeting will be August 30th, and the next general SharePoint Dev will be on September 6th. So note, and Vesa, I think this is correct, we are skipping next week's general development special interest group meeting. So we will
actually,
not
I think
have
that's
a
mistake.
Yep.
That is a mistake.
That is a mistake. Did you make a mistake on a slide?
I did a mistake on a slide.
No!
See?
So we will have the general SharePoint Dev next Thursday.
On 23rd, yes, absolutely.
On the 23rd of August.
Yeah.
So just wanted to take this opportunity to point out that Vesa made a mistake on a slide for the recorded record. And anyway, thank you all very much. Have a great rest of your week. Have a great weekend. Look forward to talking to everybody soon. Keep the great feedback, great involvement coming. We really appreciate all of you out there in the community and everything you do to make what we do fun and successful. Thank you. Have a great day. Bye.
Bye-bye.